we get our worth in those dark times, in those troubled times. Because before that, he's not worth nothing. They're going to leave him for dead. But after he's been down there and gone through some things, all of a sudden now he's worth 25 dinars. After they had pity for him and said, it's nothing, let's sell him. Well, you and I are the same way. We got to go through some dark times before we really get our worth.
Amen.
I told you earlier, Joseph was one of the most righteous guys in the Bible. Joseph was one of the best guys in the Bible. He's one of them that you won't find any fault in, that you won't find anything wrong with. So he cries out in Dothan. You and I know that 600, 700 years later, you and I know that between 500 to 700 years later, there's going to be another man of God in trouble in that same valley, and he's going to cry out to God, and on that occasion, God's going to send an army of angels to surround him in the hills. But on this occasion, a man of God cried out to God, and there was no army around the hills. There was no chariots of fire. There was no deliverance from God. Why is it that on this occasion, this young man has to suffer and be sold into slavery, and there is no army? But on the next occasion, God decides to show up. Why? Why is it that when some people pray, God answers? When other people pray, they just go through it. You go to church and you hear testimony after testimony. I want to thank God because God delivered me from this. God delivered my spouse from this. God healed my child. And then there you are saying, why couldn't he have healed my child? Why couldn't he have delivered my child before they went through what they went through? Well, I'm here to tell you this morning, who are you to question God?
Amen. Amen.
Who in the world do we think we are? There was another righteous man in the Bible by the name of Job. The guy was righteous. So righteous that God says to Satan one time, have you considered my servant Job? There's nobody in the land like him. Job would get his world to rock. And towards the end, Job, the righteous Job, finally began to question God. And he said, how can you do this to me? You don't know what it's like to walk a mile in my shoes. And that righteous man before God, God would lock his heels and tell him, who do you think you are to ask me anything? Where were you when I hung the stars and the moon from the sky? Where were you when I created the horse, the only animal that runs into battle when everybody else scatters? Where were you when I created the beast in the ocean? Where were you when I had this? Where were you when I stored up the rain in this? What do you sit asking? If you want to ask questions, sit there and ask questions. I got an answer for you. Who do you think you are? And I thought of all the people in the Bible that had questioned God. Abraham questioned God. God, would you really destroy? Would you really destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? If there was 50 righteous people there, you would destroy it. He goes, no, I want there 50, but guess what? There isn't. But God, would you really destroy it? And he's sitting there and he goes back and forth with God. I think of Jacob when he questioned God. And he said, is this what I came out here for, to die in this valley? He said, if you're God, if you get me out of this, right here, right now, if you are who you say you are, kind of bartering with God. When I think of Moses questioning God, Moses had arguments with God and said, what are you going to destroy these people? What are you thinking? If you destroy these people, what are they going to say about you? You brought them out of Egypt just to destroy them here. Are you sure this is what you want to do? And he would change God's mind. I think of Joshua questioning God. I think of Gideon questioning God. And all the prophets who questioned God about why are we suffering? Why are we going through these things? But the one that stands out the most is one we're talking about on Wednesdays, King David. In Psalms chapter 6, verses 2 through 4, David questioned God. Be merciful to me, Lord, for I am faint. Heal me, O Lord, for my bones are in agony. My soul is in anguish. How long, O Lord? How long? Turn, O Lord, and deliver me. Save me because of your unfailing love. And he looks up to God and he says, how long must I suffer through this? How long must I go through this? In chapter 13 of the Psalms, he would ask the question, how long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? And how long will you hide your face from me? He felt abandoned. He felt like God was not on his side. He felt like God had disappeared. And he looked up to heaven and he said, how long will you let me go through this? And I think it must have been different when these men questioned God and when Job did. So there must be a way that you can question God. Emilio was reminding me this morning, when I got here, Michael was 6, 7 months years old. He was born in August. We got here in February was when we came. Michael was, he was a little butterball turkey. But I had already taken him to get shots. And I used this story. And I've used it before and I use it again. And I took Michael to get his shots. I remember that, and it's happened with my daughter since. At one time I took all 3. That was horrible. Taking all 3 of them, they were all under 5 years old to get shot. It was difficult. Angelique was an infant, Abby was at 5, and she was tall then, so she was hard to hold on to then. And I remember, I didn't get to take Abby, but I got to take Michael. And I remember when the doctor stuck Michael in that big butterball leg of his, and the needle disappeared. The first thing a child does is what? He didn't look at the doctor. Who did he look at? His dad. He looked at him. And how many of you went through that with your kids? Say amen.
Amen.
If we could give our kids words at that time, they wouldn't cuss us out. They might now, but they wouldn't have then. They wouldn't have swore at you. They wouldn't have told you off. They wouldn't have ran away. They would look at you and they would say, why are you letting this evil man do this to me? Why are you letting this happen to me? There would be no hate in that infant's voice. There would be no ugliness in their speech. It would be a, why? They would be looking at us with open hands saying, why? So when questioning God, you must remember not to close your fist and look to heaven and say, why? That'll get you in trouble. But when you look to heaven with arms wide open, you say, God, why is this happening? And you come from a broken-hearted, desperate, merciful, I need mercy, I don't know where else to turn. I'm coming to you because you're my dad. See, because there are people that aren't dumb enough. I think of Forrest Gump, Lieutenant Dan. Remember Lieutenant Dan? On the ship, on that top, and he went to the top of that pole that night of the storm, and he looks up to heaven and he says, that's August, you and me, and he's standing up, and he's even going like this, you and me right here, right now, and he's going at it, that don't do that. And he's don't do that around me. There's a difference. When as a child of a Father in heaven, you look up with open arms and you say, why is this happening? Why is this going on right now? Now would be a good time for a sad song, Daniel. Who are you to question God? Who in the world do you think you are to question the creator of all the universe? The one that breathed this very life into you. Who do you think you are? Well, I'll tell you who you are. You're just a son or a daughter looking to a daddy for help. You're just a son or a daughter looking to heaven and say, God, help me. When I was a child, I thought as a child thought. When I was a child, I talked like a child. And at some point, we grow up. At some point, we get over that childish way. Because surely today, if you were to go and get a shot, as an adult, you wouldn't go and look at your spouse. Surely you would say, give me the shot. I know I need it. When we were younger, we questioned him because we didn't know why we were going through the things we were going through. But now that we're older, we know it's for our own good. Whatever it is you're facing today, whatever struggle has gotten in your way, don't question God. Know that it's for your good. And you need to see, is this a test and a trial from God, or is this an attack of the enemy? Whichever one it is, I will not turn from my God. I will not question him. Let's bow our heads.